All right, welcome everyone. We're here today with a very special interview of JanEgil Gulbrandsen, who is the co-founder of Europris, it's kind of the Walmart of Norway. So thank you for letting us be here today, John.
Thank you for having me.
So why don't we start off with maybe just a little bit of your story about what you did and just your businesses and kind of what you're up to.
Yes, I got married at a very early age. My wife is Canadian, I'm Norwegian. So as you can tell, I have a tiny little accent because English is my second language. But I managed okay. So I had a friend in Norway in our early 20s, and we started a retail chain. We started off with one store, and it was really it's close. The best way to describe it is like a mini Walmart. I got IDs from Canada, going back and forth on holidays, and we didn't have anything like that in Norway. So we came up with this new concept that nobody had done before, and it's kind of a crazy idea, but it is to sell products at a lower price than anyone else, which sounds crazy, and at the same time make more money than anyone else, which is an impossible thing to do in most cases. But the clue here was import from China. As we all know, most of the stuff you find in a home today are manufactured in China, and this started at least 30 years ago, both China supplying Europe and North America as well. And of course, if you could go to China and place an order for thousands of items, you get a really good price.
Right.
So then you can still sell it cheaper than anyone else at the same time as making more money than the others that traditionally bought their products through importers and wholesalers and agents.
Okay.
So that's why the concept was kind of unique.
All right. So I wanted to start with something you told us about yesterday, which was a little placard with a phrase that you think is very important.
Yes, because I don't have a lot of education myself, but I have something that's more valuable to me, and that is attitude. My wife had a little plaque made up after many years of living by this motto, and that is, attitude is more important than skill. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time to grasp the depth of that expression, but I have nothing against education. I think education is wonderful and important. And over the years, as I have hired a lot of people in different positions in our organization, I say skill, education, a diploma gives you the right to send an application. If we need a bookkeeper, okay, if you have education as a bookkeeper, you can now send your application, and we have 50 people applying for this job.
Right.
But to land the job, you need attitude, because there's only one out of the 50 that can get that job. And that's where your personality comes out. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe, you have to convince your employer that I can do this. And that is so important that we almost forget how important that is. And I have over the years hired hundreds of people where I look for people with personality and attitude. I'd rather, if I go back some years now, hiring a store manager, for instance, I'd rather have a 25-year-old with a lot of guts and attitude and a personality than a 55-year-old that had been a store manager for the competition for 35 years.
Okay.
They are burnt out as far as I'm concerned. We need young people with the right attitude, and I told them I can teach you everything you need to do this job. With our support system, I can teach you anything in 3 months. You can become a store manager from age 25. And that has been kind of my life motto, that applies to myself and applies to the people that I surround myself with.
One thing I'm remembering is when we were speaking yesterday, you talked about how you manage people. And there was a certain philosophy about kind of inclusion and empowering them that I thought was really important. and I wanted you to discuss
Yes.
that.
Because we started out with, my partner and I, we started out with very little education, but we had the attitude, and as the organization was growing, we didn't want to kind of just be on the top of the food chain, so to speak, and look down at the people that were actually doing the work. It's very typical, I would say, in the North American culture especially, that you build a hierarchy. You have different levels of management. And as far as making a decision, that can be necessary. But in your day-to-day operation, we are all nothing but people. So me as the owner and co-founder of and CEO of a corporation, I had no problem. As I arrived at one of our stores, I stopped in maybe to and see how they are doing. And if I found a bunch of paper, ice cream paper outside the front door, I just picked that up. And I told my manager that, or the local store manager, this is your job, to be an example to your people. You are never too big to pick up a piece of paper in front of the door. Because it's not about you, and it's not even about me. It's about a customer that arrives, and for them to have the absolute best experience they can. So we really have to tone down our egos, and that's unfortunately what I've seen so much in all types of businesses.
Right.
And people are so concerned about their title and their position, and they have a mindset of hierarchy. I'm totally against hierarchy. I know when we make decisions who the boss is, but on a day-to-day basis, hang out with your staff, be their friend, encourage them, give them the tools they need so they can do the job. It's not that it's about me, it's about doing the best job possible.
Right.
Of course, in retail, at the end of the day, it's about the customer leaving as much money behind as possible.
Okay. Getting a little bit into the actual process of education, I'm curious if you have any, or what your thoughts are about what we can teach kids in school. That's, because right now, I mean, there's the main academic stream, that's pretty much what everyone goes through. What do you think we need to bring into the school system?
I think we need to teach the kids to believe in themselves, that they can do it. And the way to do that is to encourage them and tell them that you are worthy, you are perfect. Yes, I know you screw up, and we all do that, we have mistakes. But our typical mindset is that we focus on our weak sides to improve the weak sides. My focus is the opposite. Focus on your strong sides and develop that into something fantastic. Then the less good sides in your personality will follow eventually.
Right.
But it's where is your focus? And I think that's the biggest mistake we do, is that we concentrate on the wrong things.
Okay. Yeah, I would agree. Do you think that kids need to be taught as much math as they're taught in schools, and as much social studies and stuff like that?
They need to learn the basics, of course. You cannot be in any industry. So you need a certain skill level in whatever as you come out of school, so you can continue in your lifelong learning, whatever industry you go into, so you can kind of grasp the concepts. But you don't come out of school fully trained and have never worked a day in your life, and you come into a business and you say, this is how you should do it, this is how you should do it. You know, you come with a humble attitude that I have learned something, but I still have more to learn. In fact, it's all about lifelong learning. So I didn't go to university myself till I was in my mid-30s as taking evening classes, because I knew that there were certain things that would be good to know. But again, it's about you got to have a little bit of a humble attitude, and don't come across as superior or arrogant, especially if somebody have just gone to school all their life and they are 29 years old and going to look for their first job, and they come for a job interview with you know, I got it all together. You know, you can't exist without me.
Right.
Have a good day.
We're going to get into a little bit about how your education was, where you went to school, and kind of maybe just your transition into the business world.
Yeah, when I went to high school back in Norway, I came from a family. My father was a wholesaler, so he understood business, and I'm sure I had some of that in my genetic makeup, so to speak. But in Norway, we learn English as part of our education, and I didn't know, I wasn't very good at it at the time, and I'm still sometimes struggling with the language. But basically my teacher in high school told me that if you don't start working harder at this, we'll have to fail you in English and you have to repeat a year. And I didn't enjoy doing homework. I'm a hands-on guy, I'm there, you know, when things are happening, but I didn't enjoy doing homework. So I sat down with my dad and he said, maybe we can switch you over to another type of high school, because in Norway they kind of specialize. You can do business high school, you can do academic stuff, you can do carpentry or whatever. And he saw, I guess, in me that I had a talent for the same thing that he had. So in the middle of the school year, I remember it was in November, I quit the high school I was in, went into a business high school. And as I sat down and listened to the teachers, I just took it right in, you know. I didn't have to take notes, I didn't have to go home and study, and it just clicked with me because I found my niche. So I remember even a month and a half later at the exams at Christmas, I did best in class after 1.5 months. And that because I found what I was good at. So again, like I said earlier, it's about finding out, you know, what can you do, and forget the stuff that you're not good at. Because at the end of the day, none of us can be perfect in every area. So with that starting point, when we started our business, I had this clear understanding that I need a lot of experts in many areas. But my job is to identify and find the staff that can do all this, because I cannot do it. They are way better at it than I am. And for some reason that seemed to work out good, you know.
So do you have any suggestions for how we can encourage kids to find their passions?
I think you just the parents and the teachers have to give them feedback, positive feedback on their strong sides. And yes, there are certain things that you still need to learn and it takes time, but encouragement. It says, come on, you can do it. I know you have it in you. I can see you have a personality in there. So just go for it. Keep plugging at it. And you can get way further with encouragement than saying that you are no good.
Right.
You know, because that just shuts down the system, and never call anyone a loser. Because nobody are losers. Somebody or everybody has something that they are good at. And if the kid don't figure that out themselves, it's up to the adults to identify the potential and the talent in the kids and steer them in the right direction. Because we all have some God-given thing in us that can be developed.
Yeah. One thing I noticed being around you is that you don't control people. At least that's how I feel. I don't feel controlled by you. I just feel inspired and I feel interested. And I don't feel that you would, if I was making a choice, I don't feel you would make that choice or really give me direction. You would observe me and give me options. Would you agree with that? Is that
Absolutely, and I like to hear you say that, because I hate to be a control freak, you know. But I like to see the possibilities, the bigger picture. As an older person now and experienced and mature, you see a bigger picture than you do when you are 30 or 20 or 10 years old in the school system. So we have to kind of see that and steer people in that direction, where not by saying this is how you should do it. It's by letting them see themselves and figure it out for themselves that this is what I'm good at. You just steer them in direction, and if they can come up with a suggestion themselves, where they have ownership of the decision.
Right.
And that's an important word. Ownership of your decisions have to come from within. It's not that somebody else tells you, this is how it is. I might steer people in that direction, but it has to come from within. And that's the same thing when we were two owners of the company back in Norway at the time, and we had some ideas where we were going to go. Yes, we had 15 people at the head office, all professionals in different areas. But instead of just telling them and saying, okay, we as the owners have now decided this is what we're going to do, we had conversations with them and said, how do you feel about this? What can you contribute? What can you suggest how we do things? Because I know you are skilled. You know more than me about this. Go home and think about it. Let's have a meeting a week from now and sit down and talk about these things where you bring things to the table. And usually what they brought is what we expected them to bring, because we had already figured this out most of the time. But the difference is that now they had the ownership. And they felt good. I actually contributed to this success. So as our company grew and became well known in the country and in the media, they felt that I own a little piece of this because I have contributed. And that's very important.
So one of the other interviews we've done, the man said that he thought communication skills should be taught in schools. And it sounds to me like that's something that, you use every day with your management team and with the businesses that you run. I'm trying to get to a point where we can maybe even implement a little bit of these ideas. So where do we start to teach communication? Like, what techniques do we use?
That's a good question. I basically believe that some are born with a genetic makeup that goes in that direction. Some are introverts, some are extroverts. I'm actually an introvert in most areas of life, except for the areas that I'm passionate about. If there are certain things that I love to talk about, and there I'm aggressive, I'm going forward, but in general, in a social setting, I'm an introvert. I don't initiate conversations unless it's some topic that I'm passionate about. So I have to leave that question to the professionals. How because in a society, yes, everybody has different skills, and some need to do that type of work, and some need this. We don't need all entrepreneurs like me. We need a good mix of people. So really the education system, as far as I'm concerned, and the teacher's job is to help identify the kids' interest and skill, and help them grow that into something useful. And some are designed to be a good engineer, sitting at a desk by themselves 8 hours a day for the next 40 years. And others are supposed to create the business that the engineer can work in.
Right.
So it's not everybody doing the same thing. And that, again, is the biggest challenge, I think, to the school system and the teachers. Instead of just having a program, they are lecturing, whatever, just throwing the information out there, and then, okay, some will pick it up, some don't, but they actually have to be there with the kids and help them get it.
Right.
I can give you an example of one. We got 5 kids, and one of them, they're all different, by the way, and one has really high IQ, intelligent person, but he does not absorb information by listening. He is a visual learner, so when the teacher was just standing there lecturing, talking, it's like he went in and out, didn't pick it up. But if the communication was on the blackboard or whiteboard or whatever they use nowadays, and talk, so it's a visual and hearing at the same time, immediately he could learn twice as much. Instead of the teacher saying, your homework for tomorrow is to do so and so, he came home and I asked him, do you have homework? No, we don't have homework. Are you sure you got to have homework? No, we didn't have anything. So we talked to the teacher about this. And he said, you have to write on the board, tomorrow you have to hand in so and so. So when he was reading on the board, then he knew that he had homework.
Oh, okay.
So actually before we got to that point, we actually talked to some professionals in the medical field that made us aware of the different ways of learning. You can be a visual learner, you can listen, or the combination of the two, or you can just read a book and don't need a teacher at all. There are different ways, but again, that's up to the teachers to figure this out. How to figure out how the kids are learning best and
Okay.
provide for that.
Yeah, I like that. So one thing that I know entrepreneurs, I think, know as like a main philosophy is that failure is just a part of life, and that if you're gonna make it, you're gonna have to like fail fast, get back up, and keep going. So if you, or maybe it's different, you can tell me, but what are some of your biggest failures in your life that you had to overcome?
Yeah, I would say in general, you probably do more wrong decisions, or you could have done better decisions than hitting it on the nail the first time and every time. It's not that way. Even if you can look back and outsiders look in and say, oh, that's been a big success. There's a lot of failure along the way. And part of the success then is to acknowledge the fact that this is life. You will make mistakes, and you pick yourself up and move on. Never allow yourself to stay down and say, I'm giving up because I've done 3 mistakes in a row now. All the other ones are so much better, and they are so clever, and I'm not. You got to have faith in yourself, and you have to know that that's a part of life, is to make wrong decisions and try to learn from that. So as the years go by, you will do less and less mistakes because you have done all the mistakes.
Right.
And you learn from your own mistakes. A lot of people, especially in your 20s, you come out, and think you are the hottest thing around, and people try and tell you you shouldn't be doing this and that, and you're not motivated to listen to anyone else because you know it all. When you're 20, you know everything, unfortunately. And as you get older and older, you get wiser and wiser, and you learn that you really didn't know anything when you were young because you didn't have time under your belt, I think is an expression. You need time to build up experiences in your life. So your computer up here carries a lot of information based on your previous successes and failures. And it's only time that can give you that. You can have all the skills, you can have all the education, but at the end of the day, that's why most of the top leaders are a little older than the young ones, because you have experience. And that's an important thing. And then you can just sit down, you can observe people, you can talk to people. Immediately you have an opinion on the situation, and it's pretty accurate because you have a history to back it up.
Right. So while you were talking, I was thinking about a book that I'm currently reading, which is The Richest Man in Babylon.
Okay.
Are you familiar with that book?
No, I'm not.
It basically tells, through a kind of a fable, the story of a man who was wealthy and how he learned to be wealthy through investments and then reinvesting his investments and using that money to support himself. And through that book, it's my opinion now that with the right management of money, anybody can become wealthy, or at least have money. And I'm wondering your opinion on that, because I want to train people to have money. I'd like it to be their choice about how much money they have, not just that they're trained to maybe not know about it. So what do you think?
Yeah. Well, to have money, you really have that perspective when, if you don't have any money, then the first stage of the success is that I want money so I can buy this and that and whatever, a nicer house, nicer car, and nicer clothes, you know. And that's a natural thing. That's a driving force. Eventually, when you have that and have enough of that, then life starts taking a different direction where you're looking at you start asking difficult questions like, what's the purpose of life? You know, to climb this social ladder is a part of it, but at the end of the day, there is more to the world and more to our life than the physical things we run into. There's also a spiritual side of life, and some and that can be different things. Some meditate and have a quiet time, and some are Christians and believe there's a God, or maybe there's not a God to some people. But you need to feed the spirit within you. And I have my opinion on what it takes to do that. For to be a balanced person, you need to have the physical needs met and your spiritual and your soulish needs. And that's really when you become a real success, by acknowledging that there is such a thing. There's more than the material world. There's the spiritual world. And then in my tradition, in my upbringing, that is God. I've been thinking about this a lot, you know, is there a God, is there not a God? And I just come to the conclusion that this didn't happen by itself, what we are experiencing. And the principle of life that I find in the Bible are good business principles. The reality is that most of the successful businessmen around the world, they might not be flagging that they have any faith at all, but they build their business concepts on the foundation of honesty, treating your neighbor with respect, caring for your people. And it's all out of the Bible, basically. And there might be other old books that have the same concepts.
Right.
But you cannot get away from the fact that what Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, is a fantastic tool in how to run business. And that's what we have implemented from day one. By hanging out with the people. Don't be superior. Don't be arrogant. Don't think you are better than anyone else. But I also acknowledge that not the neighbor physically necessarily, but the people that you meet in life, you need to have respect for their situation. And they also have a right. One of my basic philosophies that any person that has a full-time job, no matter what it is, should make enough money to be able to, with his wife and 2 kids, to have a roof over their head. Make enough money that you can pay your rent, that you can drive an average car and have food on the table and clothes on your back. That should be a human right, in my opinion. And if our political, economical system don't provide for people to make a living to do that, there's something wrong with our society. And you should think that I am, as a capitalist, would say, let's keep the wages down so I can make more and I don't care how they do. No, it doesn't work that way. They have to be able to make a decent living so they can love their job, take ownership of it, and appreciate being in our organization. So I might be different than many other capitalists, but I believe that's a basic philosophy, that if you put in 40 hours a week, you should be able to make a living and survive on that.
Very nice. I want to just kind of ask, maybe re-ask a little bit. Do you believe that everyone can be can create wealth, can create a lot of wealth for themselves?
I believe any person can make more out of it than where they are right now. Because there is kind of a social economic ladder that we are from right to the bottom to the tops. We're all on that somewhere, and I believe everybody can take one step up. That can make life a little better economically, but also for your own emotional life, that you have managed to do a success. You can look back in the mirror and see, I have actually taken a step forward. That feeds your own soul, your own ego to some degrees. Not that you now are superior to anyone, but you have achieved something. And you've taken one step. I don't believe the nonsense that they teach that everybody can become a millionaire. That doesn't work, because they can't. You can say that and throw it out there, and a few will make it, and the other one will sit back disappointed and said, I'm a failure. I've been watching sports programs, for instance, the Olympics, and certain nationalities, without saying any names. They cry when they get a silver medal. Because they were told by their parents and trainers, you have to get a gold medal. You have to be better than everyone else. The fact that you get a silver medal in the Olympics or a bronze medal is fantastic. You're better than 7 billion people. So there's something wrong in our education system, where we just want the absolute greatest winners. There's not even room for a hierarchy of gold, silver, and bronze, Unless you get gold, you are worthless. And you see them crying, I'm a failure. I've trained for 8 years for this. Yes, and you have succeeded. We have to redefine success. Much broader than 1 out of 7 billion.
That's beautiful. Yesterday, for me anyway, you made a really impactful point. You brought up kind of the 5, I don't know if it was kind of keys or points.
I call it success criteria.
Success criteria. Can you talk about that?
Yes. And I just use my hand because it's easy to remember. I got 5 fingers on this hand, so I know it's 5. And I start with number 1, hard work. You cannot really get ahead unless you inherit everything from your parents or you win the lotto. Then you can bypass the hard work. But it all starts with hard work. But hard work alone doesn't create a success. You have to work smart. So smart work is the number 2 factor. And the sooner you can move from hard work and start implementing smart work. You can't just jump away from hard work into smart work and not work hard anymore. But you can, those two working together. That's the basic for any success. Hard work, smart work. And what is included in smart? It means that there is a certain skill level in what you're doing. Either you have the skill yourself, or you surround yourself with people that have skills. Hard work, smart work. Then the 3rd factor is timing. It would be too late now for you or me to invent the computer. That was done 30 some years ago. And Bill Gates was there at the right time in his garage, and he came up with this thing that nobody had done before. That's why he became a success, and Microsoft became a success. In a way, it's the same thing in my history. Starting Europris retail in Norway in the early 90s, it's because nobody had done that concept before. Because I was going back and forth between Norway and Canada, we picked up some ideas here and said, what if I could bring home to Norway one great idea every time I fly home and implement that into what we do here? So that was a timing issue. Now, if anyone tried to make a concept like our retail concept, it's too late. That has already been taken by us. We control that market. And if anyone tried to do that, we'll defend our territory, so to speak. And they have a really hard time. It doesn't matter who it is. So in a way that makes the concept unique. So you work hard, you work smart, and you have the right timing. So for young people today, what can they come up with? Well, if they want to invent or start something, you have to look at does the marketplace, does the world need this right now? Or has this been done before? You have to bring something new to the table to catch interest. Hard work, smart work, timing. Then there is the fourth factor. Just call it pure luck. And pure luck, and the fifth one is what I call God's blessing. I believe the world was created by God, and He loves everybody on this face of this earth, and wants all of us to be successful to the point that we can have a good life. I don't believe that everybody should become millionaires, and it won't happen, but God wants everybody to have a good life. So I pray to God every morning and every day and say, God, help me in my decision making. And I kind of feel in my heart, in my spirit, I should do this, I should do that. Sometimes I call it, I see a red light, and I close my eyes. You can call it meditate, call it whatever you want. In your quiet time, ask the tough questions and then listen to your spirit within you. And if you see a red light, this is not something I should be doing, steer away from it. If you see the green light, and then you see another green light, that's a sign that go down this road. It's opening up. It looks like your spirit, God's spirit, is in harmony. And that's the fifth factor that we need to acknowledge to be a total success. And people say, no, I don't believe in God. Okay, so just believe in luck then. But you're missing out on the spiritual dimension of life that's also a part of business and a part of economic success, is to listen to the voice within you.
Very nice. And I think that's so interesting because I think, the perception of wealthy people is, I think it's so different than what the reality is. And a lot of people probably think that, there's a lot of greed or there's a lot of taking from me. And here we are talking to a very wealthy man about his spiritual kind of meditations and prayers. I think that's really nice. Is there anything on your mind that I haven't brought up that you would like to see for the kids being taught or not being taught? Have I missed something?
I don't know much about the school system. I know, yes, we have 5 kids ourselves. 3 of them are married. We got 5 grandkids. And I'm more involved in their life now than I was in the early age when they were small. My wife kind of ran that part of the family, and I was the provider, so to speak. But I think it's important for both parents to be involved in their kids' life. I know, yes, you have issues with divorce and you have a lot of stuff, but even if parents don't even live under the same roof, take part in your kids' life by being a positive supporter and an encourager. You don't have to always be together 5 hours a day. Yes, if you can do that, wonderful. And I see that the next generation that come after us have this as a much bigger priority. What I see in my surroundings, that the men basically are taking more, showing more involvement in their kids' life. And I think that's healthy. So the parents, both parents, have to be an encourager to their kids and spend time. And you have terms like quality time, and I'm not big on the quality issue, because time, just being together and saying positive things. Yes, sometimes you need correction too, and you also need to point out there are certain things that are bad for you. And if you do that, you can get harmed. So protection on the one hand and encouragement on the other hand. And that same thing is in the school system. The teachers need to do more than being a lecturer like in a university. I say the same thing in church. You have pastors that are just preaching from the pulpit, and people are just sitting back saying, okay, I come here every Sunday and I like to kind of listen to this if I don't fall asleep. but I can't wait to go to Swiss Chalet for chicken at 12 o'clock, because it's like something you do. Clue, even in church, is two-way dialogue, where you feed off each other. Question and response. There's way too little of that, and there's probably too little of that in the school system.
Absolutely.
Where they can express themselves, and there's no such a thing as dumb questions. What might look dumb to one person is totally necessary for the other, and if you have heard it before, and if you have the answer, then you can just get that confirmed. So to repeat things is good. So again, I don't know too much about the school system, but I'm sure you do, and I'm very excited that you have a passion for doing this project you're doing to improve the school system and the whole learning process. Because there's a lot of basic stuff out there, what I call basic stuff. I can't believe that they haven't already implemented that.
Can you share us? I think this is really good.
Well, it's the basic idea of listening. And yes, we talk, but we also need to listen, There's a reason why we have 2 ears and only one mouth. And we have a little group that meets in our home on a weekly basis. And I just call myself a facilitator. I'm just one of the people. And say we are 20 people that get together and talk about different issues. My point is that I want to hear the 15 people that normally don't speak up. Because the 5 hog 80% of the time. I don't know if you're familiar with the 80-20 rule. We don't have time to go into that. But it's really 20% of the people that take control of 80% of the time. And 80% of the people share 20% of the time. We need to change that, because everybody has something. So when we meet in our weekly gathering, I try to challenge people that are introverts, that are not speaking up, but they have a lot of wisdom. I said, so what do you think about this? We haven't heard your comments lately. And bring the good out of everybody and shut down the big talkers. So I try to shut myself down sometimes. I'm very aware of that. But there's others also that hog the conversation. They can be on the stage just doing their lectures, and we can sit and enjoy that for 2 hours. But when you are in a group setting, everybody should have a fair chance. And that, I assume, would be like a classroom. In any school system, you have some kids that just take the control with the teachers, and the teachers buy into that. They like these cool kids, and the cool kids get along with the teacher, and the other ones are just following the tennis ball going back and forth. So again, that's where the leaders, the teachers, need to show the responsibility and insight of get everybody on board. Don't accept that the back row of the class is a room a place where you just sit and sleep. As long as you're quiet, I'm okay with. No, you're not okay with that. You want to engage them also, because they have something to bring to society.
Okay, so why don't we compare a little bit, in your experience, the differences that you're aware of between the Norwegian system that you went through and the Canadian system, and maybe your kids' experience a little bit.
Yes, like I said, I don't know a whole lot about the Canadian school system. But I know in Norway we have a general understanding of that kids need to be supported, encouraged to get education, and the government also provides money for schools, for books and everything you need, elementary, high school, but also university. If you want to go ahead and if you want to study abroad, they have a system where first they give you a grant, which is basically half of the cost of any university, even if you go to Harvard, because they want people with some high education. Any university around the world, they pay half, then you give the other portion as a loan, and when you complete your degree, then they cut your loan in half. So basically they pay like 75% of your education, your travel costs, your living expenses, and you get the last 25% as a loan. And they give you good terms, and they give you a lot of time to do. And they do this because they see Norway as it is just a fairly small country. It's a rich country, but they need to get people to come back with a lot of international insight and experience. I think the biggest mistake a country can do is to believe that we are it, you know. There's nothing outside. Some countries you can ask a high school student with a fancy hat and a diploma and say, where is London, you know, and they couldn't even find it on the map. You need to teach the kids geography. They need to get some insight in different cultures, their mindset. When we started our business, to go back to that, we did a lot of traveling to China. Well, you have to learn a little bit about Chinese culture to be able to do business with them, because they do things different. And that's where I think the challenge might be, even for Canada, to get what I call an international perspective on life. And of course our kids have been very privileged, growing up in two different cultures, always gone to what we call international schools. Not just regular schools, but international schools that have a bigger perspective on life, with students from maybe 50 different countries, different cultures, and even different religions. We need to learn respect for other people's view. It is really ignorance that makes us believe that the other ones are always wrong, the other ones are always bad, the other ones are evil, they all want to get us. It's a result of ignorance. When you start to learn a little bit that people are generally have the same makeup. They want to live in peace, they want to get ahead, they want to do a little better next year than this year, you know. We all the same. And so to bring that into the education system is pretty good. And I think Canada is doing a pretty good job at it, because Scandinavian culture is one thing and American culture is another thing, and Canada is kind of located physically between the two. You know, when you look at the map, roll it out, it looks like Canada is above US and Europe is way over to the right. Look at the globe.
Right.
Look at how you fly from Europe to US. You fly over Canada and over the North Pole. So Canada is actually physically between Europe, Scandinavia, and the US. And that's why it has the best of both cultures. So I'll give you that, Canada. I love Canada, but I also like some of the things that I was brought up with.
Well, I like the direction we're going, because you're kind of touching on the reason for the name of our films, which is Deep Roots Films. And the reason I came up with that name is because my sort of mentor and kind of spiritual leader in my life has a saying that says, deepen your roots, broaden your vision. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's what he means. He means that we need to have a global outlook.
Yeah. We
need to understand other cultures and be accepting and even appreciate them.
Absolutely.
But also that we need to dig into our own and have like a good foundation and base.
Absolutely. So you got to learn where you came from, and you got to pull out all the good from that. And in every culture there's good and bad. In every person there's good and bad. Let's focus on, if you're thinking of BC, how fantastic, all the positive things about BC. The nature, the ocean, the whales, the salmon, the trees, it's all good. And it's also good that the mountains are full of minerals and gold and resources. And the privilege to have such a huge province as far as square miles, divided by 4 or 5 million people, that's a lot of square footage per person. And that's really how you measure wealth. Comparison, the US, about the same size as Canada. but with 10 times the population. Well, that can have some positive sides. But when it comes to the resources in the country, you now have 10 people to share a square mile, while in Canada you have one. So as far as owning land, Canada is one of the richest in the world, because we all have a big piece of property full of resources. Same thing with Norway. Norway has so much oil, just like they have in Alberta, and oil and gas, and it's only divided among 5 million people. And they have, over the years, managed their money wisely and running a surplus at the national level, putting money into savings, which is another word for owning stock and properties around the world. The government is doing that on behalf of the people. So everybody has a big, let's call it a retirement account that is good for many generations going down. So for the government to behave responsible on behalf of the people, it's a part of the good life. And it's the same thing here in BC, that it's a beautiful place and there's a lot of resources. Let's protect the resources, but let's not say that we have to shut down all the jobs now because we're gonna only recycle stuff, You still need to create jobs, because jobs are important. People need a job and a paycheck, and they actually need the meaning of having to go to work. It's not a good, like Norway has almost gone too far in that direction, where now 50% of the population over 50 years of age are not working because the money just comes so easy. And that doesn't give a meaning in life. It's healthy to go to work and work hard and come home tired and sweaty and have a good shower and I don't know, I'm going down this road at all. Certainly we're talking politics here, but it's a part of the education system that kids need to have a balanced understanding of society. Yes, you can have the environmental lobby in and teach their theology. I call it theology. And you can have the other side that says there is no such a thing as an environmental issue. But you need to teach both and let people follow their heart, because I believe there's a lot of wisdom put into us, especially if we allow the spiritual dimension also to control our lives, that we actually get insight and wisdom to make good decisions for ourselves, for our kids, and for the future.
So around the world, I see that there are probably thousands of various forms of religion. And one thing that I see creating a lot of issues is religious misunderstanding. When Christians don't like Muslims and Muslims don't like Christians, or atheists and whatever. And so part of my philosophy on education is that we need to have secular religious education, and that students need to learn about all religions as well as their own, so that they can appreciate everything. And I have the same mentor who I named this film after. He also talks about why are we not taking wisdom from all over the planet? We take technology from all over the planet, but when it comes to wisdom, we only take our religion, and then that we ignore the rest. And I'm just wondering if you agree with that perspective, or your thoughts on that idea.
Well, I'm an observer of life and of politics and what's happening in our society. And maybe some other people also see this, but I can see that in the next 50 years, the world is going in a direction of what we can call one world religion. I don't necessarily say that's a good thing, but I'm just an observer. We're talking of one world economy, one world order. The ideas of individual countries and cultures are becoming less and less important in the globalization process that's taking place. So, like I said, I don't necessarily say that's a good thing, but it's going to happen. And certain church organizations, like the Catholic Church, for instance, with the Pope, he is promoting this big time as pick and choose from all religions, and let's just make one world religion. I'm not a religion person. It maybe for some viewers it looks like I am a believer in religion. I'm not, because my definition of religion is man's attempt to please an angry God. That's the definition of religion. They see God as a judge that is out there to control and punish people, and if you do certain things, then you're in his good book, and if you screw up, then you have a problem with the authority. So that's why some have to pray 5 times a day, and some only pray once a day, and some goes to confession once a week. But the whole perspective of religion is pleasing an angry God. I don't have that perspective. I have the perspective of God is love. God is only love. And he showed his love by sending Jesus to take away the sins of the world, it says in the Bible. That's, to me, is just basic theology. It's not a religion. I'm a Jesus fan. I'm a Jesus freak, in the sense that I believe God is a spirit, and he sent his spirit to live within us. That's what I'm talking about, this relationship, listening to God. I'm not interested in religion. So religion is not the answer, but having a personal relationship with the creator of the universe. Because there is one thing that the religions agree on, and that there is a God. And in fact, there is only one God, but their understanding of God is wrong.
Right.
Because God is not angry. He put all his anger on Jesus 2,000 years ago, and now he's done with the anger. Now he is a loving, caring God that wants relationship with every 7 billion people. And if people could understand that and allow themselves to take that challenge and say, okay, God, I can't find you, but can you find me? Can you do something in my life so I sense that you are for real? And that's a challenge to any person, in my opinion, if you have the guts to ask that question. Because if he is for real, he will reveal himself to you in some way. And that's where this is happening all over the world. In any religion, people are seeking, because we are spiritual beings, we are seeking in our religions, wherever you are brought up. And they did the Aboriginals, or they used to call them Indians in Canada. They pray to God. They do the same in China. They do the same in South America. There is only one God. And when they call out to him, it's his responsibility to make contact. So we don't have to feel guilty that I should have done more, I should have done this, I should have that. I totally believe that people with an honest seeking for God will make contact, not because we produce good behavior so he can like us, but he will make contact. And I have been talking so long about this now that I almost forgot your question. So repeat that again and I'll wrap it up.
Sure. So the main question was, do you see that we should be teaching all religion so that we can understand it?
Yeah, I think it's important as a part of the global education to have insight into what these different religions represent. And I have been a Christian all my life, but I honestly have not spent enough time learning about Islam. That's why, as one I told you before, that I have a website, and I have written a long presentation on Islam, for instance. because I really felt I have studied Islam to try and find out what is this about. And there's a lot of good things there. But in our political system, the way it's been portrayed in our society now, is that that's evil, that's all bad. But the bottom line is, it all comes from the one and only God, and somebody along the way have hijacked that religion and present it as all evil. And ignorant people buy into that by listening to the media and say, well, if that TV station is saying it and they are saying it and they say the same thing, then it must be true. No, I think we're not going to go there, but somebody has an agenda of showing the evil, because that's really good for business at the end of the day. Because as a businessman, I can see through this that there are money behind. There's something called the largest industry in the world. That's the weapon industry. And the ones that own the shares of those companies have an agenda of selling as much as they can. And if there was peace in the world, they wouldn't make money. Again, back to your question about religion. Get educated. But don't say that all this religion stuff is good necessarily. But you need to have insight.
Yeah. All right. Well, for me anyway, I feel that we've covered most of the topics that I wanted to get into. And I really appreciate your time and your insight. And I hope that this can help kids in the future have an understanding of how capable we are and what is possible for a human being who really puts his mind to something. So thank you very much. Thank you, John.
Very good.